wanted to address this at a different angle, but I think it will tie into the same narrative. And one of the beautiful things that we're doing here is we're relating around what's all real for us and what's going on in our individual states and counties and communities and our own lives with our families. And it's part of what we do through Reclaim Your Lives and New Earth Project is really to address the larger narrative globally as to what's really making itself manifest in the individual communities and individual experiences of what is the evil empire. And in the bigger unfolding of what is unraveling this year, we are witnessing what I call the war of Satan, because God is not at war. He has nothing to war for. I mean, God is life itself is syntropic. It's wholly wired to this divine and intrinsic nature that it operates on every strata of consciousness, really, of every strata of life, from the microbes in the soil to the way that the stars and the planets are having patterns as part of a universal weaving. And so I've written about this extensively for my own growth, that the war of Satan and the hidden hand of God, which is Syntropic, is that the Luciferian cabal is having a spiritual warfare, and we are being offered a contract to participate in that. And when we go into a fight and flight reaction to that, then we kind of get an opportunity to discover more about ourselves, because hatred and blame and projection only ever says more about our own unresolved than what it is that we're dealing in the external world with. And yet we are here and we are looking at this, and I feel it's relevant to speak to what is playing out in the larger architecture of the geometry in our global and collective consciousness, is that there is indeed a war being waged on sovereignty, on freedom, on sanity, on the natural order in proportions that humanity hasn't really witnessed before. We've spoken about the cult programming that is underway so severely, and I've written about it extensively to put it into context, how it's still performing a function in the syntropic nature of life. And I don't want to focus too much on the dark component of all of this, but I do feel that when we are willing to be open, to be with what is, and to look at that without the sense of wanting to shy away from it, but braving ourselves to look into the face of the oppressor, to look at the Luciferic cult programming, to look at the ritualistic child sex abuse that is being exposed all over the world, the more that we can shine our consciousness and awareness onto it. And this is not for everybody. This is for those that feel that that is actually something that they are able to navigate, they are willing to navigate, and they're open to actually shine their light, because we are each individually channels for the divine. We are emanations of God, Goddess consciousness. And what we're dealing with is unconsciousness, is the opposite of syntropy. We're dealing with entropy. We're dealing with Luciferic programs that is inserted into our metric to start operating our reality as a matrix. And when we are able to be present with that and stay connected to source and stay connected to love and witness what occurs in us, we can unravel a lot of the programming based on fear and based on lack and based on scarcity that may still house itself in our own cellular makeup, so that we can free ourselves of it. And I've spoken myself to many people in person around this and written around this for my own self to get a real good insight into how the geometry really works based on the syntropic nature of life. And that has allowed me to see that if I am willing to witness and to see in and to stay connected with love, then I am able to dissolve that which in the external world is playing out seemingly so ferociously. And this is where the term light worker may have a benefit of being upgraded to something that is not so much about I carry the light and I'm love and I'm all of these beautiful things. No, I'm a warrior of the light, and I'm fierce and I'm stern and I'm strong and I'm brave, because the things that we fear most to look at have a capacity to still control us because we're not willing to look at it. And when we remember that we are emanations of God, Goddess consciousness, and that there is a spiritual war going on, that we can sense for ourselves, that we can be a witness to the process, because it's only the Luciferians that are waging war. We are not here as light workers, so to speak, to engage actively in a battle of anger. What the only way out, and this is the crux of my message, many, many thousands of years ago, a disease, a virus, was permitted to come into Earth's ecosystem, and it's known as the archonic influence. It is part of a glitch in the creation pattern of life, in the greater cosmology of this planetary and solar system ecosystem. And it was part of the creation of Gaia. And in the creation of Gaia, there was a glitch in the creation pattern that caused the existence of the ultra and ultra opposite of love and of syntropy to exist. And what this energy has done and has been able to manifest for itself as a parasitic frequency, it has been able to come into Earth's ecosystem and seeded itself into the consciousness of humanity. And this I have delved in myself quite thoroughly. But the key in this is that it was permitted. And the reason it was permitted is because it's performing a function for the growth of consciousness and conscious intelligence on this earth to come to know itself to greater depths and expanses. And this story may assist some of you to be able to recognize that what is playing out is part of a divine symphony. It is a very long 50,000 plus year experiment. And we are here now to bear witness to that process. But the core of this message is that this archonic field frequency that has operated itself now in full swing as a mind virus in our human ecology, it is known as Wetiko, it is known as Iepa. So many of the traditional and original cultures on planet Earth are fully aware that this disease lives in humankind, and particularly has it thrived on the back end of the Western people, white men. And that is not to cause any divisionary orientations, but this goes back to the tribe of Judah, and I won't go into that now. What this parasitic archonic influence is unable to accomplish on its own accord is to find its way home. It is a glitch in the original metric of conscious conception and conscious creation of Gaia's force field. And the only way that it can come back to source is to nest itself in humanity's consciousness, because we are the only vehicle that actually can transform any demonic presence and dissolve it back into love. And so this presence is here, and we are here during this time, which to me seems to be really culminating to this narrative of the great apocalypse, which is the great unveiling and the great revealing. This archonic energy once out. It has never before, because it has parasited on other ecosystems in other parts of this universe, but it has never before lived to the length and the extent that it has lived today. It has no comprehension of what it is or how it can actually sustain itself, other than to rape and pillage that which has the capacity to take it home. And in this, as light workers, if we want to see ourselves as that, we have an immense opportunity to be responsible and in response to what is a Luciferic experiment and a Luciferic program running full flux here on the planet during this 2020 COVID pandemic. And when we are able to expand our awareness that we are at the culmination point where humanity has an opportunity to transform at large and send back home, send back to source, delete entirely by dissolving it into love, an experiment that has run 50,000 plus years. It has progressively embedded itself into the thinking and what I call the human damage based ways of relating to reality in humanity. It is known as a mind virus that is based on control and lack and the fear of death. And all of it is out of the natural order. We are now coming into a place where we have an opportunity to look at this and to feel into our own cells and to our own selves whether what we really came here for. Because what it wants out. It has never been exposed to syntropy this long, and it is attempted in every fashion possible and every binary sequence possible, because only what it can do is rape the original order. It can only distort syntropy because it is entropic. It can only parasite of that which is living and spirited. And so where we are is that we have each got within our own divine connection to source an opportunity to find within ourselves that which still is of resistance, that is still of fear of even listening to any of these so-called demonic narratives. I would like to share with you that any demon, any archon, any Luciferic field frequency is nothing more than condensed hurt. And when you can connect with what condensed hurt is, and you can imagine what that looks like when you imagine a child being heavily traumatized, that is exactly what demonic field frequencies are. They can never speak in terms of please come find me, please heal me, please transform me, please take me home. What it can do is show up in anybody's field as a distortion in our energetic fields or our neurochemistry, and yell and scream from the frequency that it is here to live out. What is key in all of what I'm sharing here is that we, each of us, can check in with ourselves what we came here for. Because what I speak to is not for all of us, but what I speak to in the same sentence is that we can each inquire within. And what that does, it can bring so much peacefulness to ourselves, because this isn't like a call to action for you to step up and be the divine goddess warrior that you think you came here to be. This is for you to align yourself with your soul purpose and your spirit's calling, why you are showing up here today on the earth in 2020 with the biggest shitfuckery and shitstorm that humanity has ever been thrown into. And you can check in whether your role is just to hold space, because your cells know. And you can check in with yourselves whether you are to step it up, that you have actually been avoiding looking at the ritualistic child sex abuse that the ITNJ has been exposing, that you have actually been shying away from really braving yourself to look at the things that you're like, well, no, that just triggers all my traumas. This Brave New Life community is here to access those primary woundings so that if it's relevant for you, you can free yourself of it. I myself am thoroughly experienced in navigating the internal landscape and how to bring these parts home, because they have become compressed within ourselves due to traumatic experiences in our childhood. But what happens to these personas, because they are becoming a compressed, they're becoming an inversion of love, because love wasn't upheld. We were actually experiencing trespass, violation, rape of our original innocence. And so there is there's an inversion of love that occurred, and that gap in our ecosystem naturally invites any parasitic frequency to come and nest in that. Why? So that it can become the voice of the disassociated aspect of self, so that you can come and find it and reintegrate it. This has everything to do with comprehending in-depth MK Ultra programming and how to invert it based on syntropy and love. And I would like to invite you all in the next weeks coming, as we have increased our community conversations, to engage deeper, to go into the raw, to get really real with the fears that are still harbored within your cells, with the feelings of despair or whatever it may be that is there, because we have a tremendous opportunity to dissolve into love, the greatest culmination of a such a long cycle, and we are here for that. And in that, I just want to stress that you can simply again and again check in with you what your soul purpose really is, because your cells will know if you're just here to hold space, if you're just here to relate, if you're just here to actually take on your local county. But some of us in this group, we have come here to be these unique master navigators, and that doesn't mean we go out there. No, we go in here into the sacred space of the heart, where we take and apprehend those archonic frequencies and we say to them, I can take you home. And I've done this on many occasions, and it's a fascinating trip. And I'm willing to explain to anybody how we can navigate that if you feel that that is relevant to you. But what I feel is relevant in closing this is that you can come to discover for yourself by me calling this onto you, and you don't have to answer it. You know it already, that you can discover really what your purpose in being here with all of us is, what your purpose in your community may look like, and that you can brave yourself to whatever purpose you came here to step into that new life and to source from love, to let that light penetrate every cloak and every veil that is still being stirred in your being, that which withholds you from shining the light that you are birthed with, that you are born with, that you are wired with, and that you have a gift to bring into the collective for all of humanity, and in effect for all of creation and the entire Gaia saga that we are an intimate part of. So welcome to a brave new life.
Sovereign, that was an exquisite channeling. It's just getting better and better every single day with you. I love it. So we're showing up to be those master navigators in the way that we came here to do, of holding space here for these brave new lives. So if you've just come in, welcome. If this is your first time, some of you have been listening to Sovereign's course on Syntropy or his podcast. And there's and the movie that's coming out through Earth Heroes that will be out at the end of December. So we showed a clip, and I think that's been an email. We'll send that an email out this weekend with that if you missed that. A lot of it's on regenerative agriculture and syntropy and agroforestry, what he talks about. You can hear in his languaging.